Hello. This is my Harriet Quimby presentation for Intro to Aerospace. Let me pull it up for you. Okay. There we go. All right. The Life and the Contributions of Harriet Quimby by Drew Ebbs. Her early life before aviation. We do know that she was born on May 11th, 1875 in Oakland, California. We also know that she was the daughter of Irish immigrants. Other than that, we don't know much about her early life because records were a bit harder to keep in that period. We do know also that before she became interested in aerospace, she was a successful journalist. She wrote for a New York paper, and her articles had up to as much as 25,000 regular readers. So she was quite experienced and quite a competent journalist. How her aviation career started. Harriet Quimby got bitten by the aerospace bug, as we call it, when she attended an air show in New York City. In this air show, pilots came from around the country to show off their speed. And one of the ways they did this was they flew around the Statue of Liberty. The winner of this race was a Frenchman named Jean Moisson. According to records, Harriet Quimby was so enamored and inspired by Moisson's flying that she immediately went up to him and asked for lessons as soon as he landed. Jean Moisson obliged, and for the next few years, he trained Harriet Quimby. Sadly, Jean Moisson's life was cut short a few years later when he died in a plane crash. Sadly, as many pilots did in the early days of the industry. And so she started taking lessons from his brother Alfred. Her rise to fame and providence. Using her hundreds of hours of experience and training, she applied and did a check ride for her pilot's license. On August 2nd, 1911, she successfully became the first woman to gain her pilot's license, given to her by the Aero Club of America. After she got her license, she started to try to make money off of it. There were these events popping up during this time era known as exhibition flights. These were when pilots would come together and compete in a sort of way. They would test out their skills like speed, maneuverability, landing, and the winners could make up to as much as $10,000 in these events, which is a lot of money back then. Harriet Quimby made a great deal of money off of her participation in these exhibition flights. In 1911, she started to gain international attention when she was invited to perform in front of President Francisco Madero of Mexico. This not only signified her attention she was getting, but also the attention that women were getting in aerospace as a whole during this time period. Harriet Quimby was no stranger to daring expeditions. The most famous of these was in 1912 when she attempted to fly over the English Channel. The English Channel was a body of water between Britain and France. She attempted this flight on April 16th, 1912, and the weather that day was awful. I mean, heavy fog, low visibility, just not great flying conditions. And she was advised by her instructor slash mentor, Alfred, to not go through with it. However, being determined, she decided to try it anyway. and she had nothing but a compass to guide her. She had no radios, none of the modern tech that we have today. So it really showed her dedication to flying that she even attempted this with such bad conditions. And she made it to the town of Hardelot, France, 25 miles south of her starting point. It wasn't the planned end destination, but it was still considered a great success. She never made the front page, however, because a few days after her successful expedition, the Titanic sunk, which kind of stole all the international attention. Quimby's depth and influence. While flying in the Harvard-Boston air meet, July 1st, 1912, her engine started failing. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and she plummeted to her death. It was really sad. Her crew got cut short early, but that happened to a lot of the early pilots in the industry, as I mentioned earlier. About 65 years later, the US Postal Service actually commissioned a stamp in her honor. It read Pioneer Pilot. She encouraged later women in aviation to take up flying. These are my works cited. This is the website from the FAA right there, NASA, and this is the book I showed you last week. And the rest of these are sites that I used for my pictures. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation.